Who's that? Commander Claw. Who's bad? Commander Claw. Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Brews. I am your host, Commander Claw, and this is episode 2 of 5 best picks for Black Panther Wankandian King. As you know, the Marvel set has been out for at least a month. I don't know if you got your card yet or not. I haven't gotten the card. I'm debating on even buying it on the secondhand market, but I have been brewing because I have websites to build deck list, and I've been trying to find some new cards to add for you and your deck building prowess. Friends, players, let's get started. Black Panther Wakanda King, you know what he is. Green white, super low CMC commander, so you will be casting him multiple times during the game, in my opinion. Why I say that? Because high CMC commanders, you should look at casting them 1 to 2 times max, because if your opponent removes them, that commander tax is very expensive. Not for Black Panther. He keeps coming back. Let me read you his abilities, and then after that, I got 5 cards for you. Otherwise, if you're new to this channel, I highly recommend you subscribe so I can bring you more content like this. If you're a returner, thanks. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that red button right up there, actually below you. Peace. Let's get started. As you know, selesyna colors, he's green-white, 2/2 body, legendary creature, human noble hero, first strike, has the ability to survey the realm. Whenever Black Panther or another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target land you control. Okay, so that means we're going wide. It has the ability Mind Vibranium, tap 3. All you got to do is tap 3. Move all +1/+1 counters from target land you control onto target creature. If one or more +1/+1 counters are moved this way, you gain that much life and draw a card. Yes. So, Black Panther, what we're doing here, we're trying to go wide, dropping as many creatures as possible so we can put +1/+1 counters on a target land. The more lands we have, or the more creatures we have, means the more +1/+1 counters we put on lands. Then we can move them at instant speed from land to creature during combat, or not during combat, or maybe during a blocking combat phase. And remember, we get to gain that much life and draw a card. All that's a lot. That is a lot of great stuff. But this first card I want to bring to you, I didn't even think about it. Then I just got on this wave of removing +1/+1 counters because we have so many. What am I talking about? Let me show you. We have the Cryptic Trilobite XX. Essentially, that means every 2 mana is 1. Okay? XX, every 2 mana is 1. So it's a creature trilobite. That's that prehistoric dinosaur. That's what it is. Cryptic Trilobite enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So for every 2 mana, you put 1 +1/+1 counter. But we're not worried about that because we played a bunch of creatures and we get to move +1/+1 counters from the land onto this creature, which is the Cryptic Trilobite. Then it says remove a +1/+1 counter from Cryptic Trilobite. Add 2 colorless mana. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. Okay, cool. There's a bunch of abilities out there that you would want to use for. So you can use this for Black Panther, remove a +1/+1 counter, and tap an additional 1, or just remove 2 +1/+1 counters to have a total of 4 colorless mana to use Black Panther's ability. Super smooth. Otherwise, you get to tap 1 mana and tap Trilobite and put a +1/+1 counter on Cryptic Trilobite. So it's also a +1/+1 counter producer itself. So you see what I'm talking about here? Just more explosive plays. And don't think there's not other enchantments out there that have activated abilities that you can't use. I should put them in the comments below. I got some more stuff for you to do with removing +1/+1/+1 counters. +1/+1/+1/+1 counter. That's 3 +1/+1. Anyways, mindless automation. Automaton. Tap 4. Artifact creature construct. When it enters with 2 +1/+1 counters. Tap 1, discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on mindless automaton. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to do this last ability. Remove 2 +1/+1 counters from mindless automaton. Draw a card. Woo wait! I'm telling you right there, if you got 8 +1/+1 counters on mindless automaton, you remove 8, you're drawing 4 cards. And remember, since you're with Black Panther, you better have the obelisk so you can move +1/+1 counters from creature and when it dies and stuff like that. You see what I'm talking about here? So you're just putting use to these +1/+1 counters by removing them. You're never losing them. And this is instant speed. That's pretty nasty. So if somebody tries to play a board wipe and destroy your board, you're just like, well, I'm gonna remove all these counters. Or you actually move the counters onto him, then remove them to draw all these cards. Oh my god. This is a good card for card draw. It's just sitting there waiting. Okay, we got Terra Eternal for 3 mana. It's an enchantment. All lands are indestructible. This is straightforward. But this is symmetrical, so that means it includes your opponent's lands. Think about that. Most of the time, your opponents are probably not playing lands that animate, but they do have problematic lands that you would love to get rid of. So, play this card accordingly, I should say. Your lands are indestructible and they have +1/+1 counters. So, you could go to attack phases if you animate your land, and your animated land is indestructible. That's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. Uh, Kutzil Malamet Exemplar. Green, white, and a colorless cat warrior legendary creature 3/3. I think this is a really good card. It's kind of tricky how it's worded, but once I read it again and I thought about the +1/+1 counters, I was like, brilliant. You know, Black Panther, Cat Warrior, Cat Tribal, just saying. All right, it says your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So you're on your turn, your opponents cannot interact with you. They can't remove your creatures. They can't cast spells that, they can't do instant spell stuff. But they can activate abilities. Just know that. But this is a good protecting type of piece, stacks card, limiting your players, limiting your opponents trying to mess up your board state. And remember, when you play green white, you are permanent heavy. You don't have a lot of interaction in your hand that's not obvious besides like a heroic intervention. Your opponents should know that you have a heroic intervention or a white instant spell that gives your creatures permanents indestructible. So anyway, the bottom part here. Whenever one or more creatures you control, each with power greater than its base power, deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So whenever you move +1/+1 counters onto a creature, that means its power is greater than its base power. Because its original base power is whatever it was, then you add the +1/+1 counters on it, just made it stronger. So when you go to combat and you do damage to an opponent, this rewards you. You get to draw a card. Just also know if you attack all 3 of your opponents, when you have +1/+1 counters on your creatures, you get to draw 3 cards. So it's literally per player. Okay, bear with me. This is my favorite card that I'm recommending for you. Remember, Black Panther is a 2/2 creature. He is a 2/2 creature. That is super important. So when you play Unstable Glyph Bridge for 5 mana, 3 white white, it's an artifact. It says when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, for each player, choose a creature with power 2 or less that player controls. Then destroy all creatures except creatures chosen this way. Obviously, you're going to keep your Black Panther on the battlefield and destroy all your opponent's creatures, and you're going to keep one of their weak creatures on the battlefield. Cool. This is a really good board wipe, right? For 5 mana. But what I really like about it is after you board wipe, you can craft it with an artifact. For 5 mana, once again, exile this artifact, exile another artifact you control, or an artifact card from your graveyard, return this card transform under its owner's control. Craft as a sorcery. So, over here on the right-hand side, we have Sandswirl Wanderglyph. It's a 5/3 artifact golem, flying, okay. Whenever an opponent casts a spell during their turn, they can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. Each opponent who attacked you or a planeswalker you control this turn can't cast spells. So your opponents have to make a decision. They got to make a decision very early. Very early. And you will know from the get-go if they want to attack you. They cannot hide their intentions at the beginning of their turn. So, for example, if they cast a spell during their main phase, they can't attack you. You just know that off the bat. Now, if they decide not to cast a spell during their main phase, okay, you're like, okay, I'm suspicious. What are you going to do during your attack phase? They go to their attack phase and they decide to attack you. Okay, now they can't cast a spell during their second main phase. So overall, you're ruining their sequencing. You're making them make a obvious decision if they're going to attack you. And it's tough because they got to make a choice where is it more advantageous to attack two other players instead of you? And what's nasty about this card is it actually forces your opponents to gang up on you. That's what really happens. Because if you're the only one who's impenetrable, right? And you're limiting their spells, like they just need to be like, hey, we need to politic and actually take you out because I can't cast spells and attack you, or I have to attack you, then I can't cast a spell. Too much thinking is involved. So I really like this card. It's very political, and it forces your opponents to actually make a conscious decision that they probably won't see the turn that it happens. Thank you for watching another Breaking Brews on Black Panther. Wankandian King, I think he's an awesome commander. Green-white is a heavy permanent type of play style. You will put out creatures that are super powerful, and you do need to protect them by dropping a bunch of instants and sorceries into play. I like these 5 cards because they utilize +1/+1 counters in a way I didn't think about in the beginning when it first came out. There's a bunch of cards that have these effects that I didn't even put on here. They'll probably be on the next episode, so look out for that. Otherwise, remember, like the video if you think this content was awesome. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Peace out. I'm Commander Claw.